This list could have been just about all 15 Honda Goldwings, but where's the fun in that? Instead, it's time to mix things up and bring you 10 of the best touring motorcycles from the 1990s. They'll last forever. From the Super Blackbird to the Goldwing, these are the bikes you wanted to be on when you were on the last 100 miles home in the dark and rain. Before we get into the list, I gotta give a shout out to some honorable mentions, including the ZZ-R 1100. Yamaha FZ1 First Gen was so powerful and easy to handle. Number 1, we have the Honda VFR 800 Fi. Man, if we're talking about legendary touring bikes from the 90s that are built to last, you already know we gotta start with a Honda VFR 750 and its successor, the VFR 800. First hitting the scene in 1986, the VFR 750 RC24 carried the Interceptor name in the US up until 1990, but that was just the beginning. This bike saw so many upgrades over the year, it's impossible to list them all here. It held on strong until 1997 before making way for the VFR 800, a machine that proved so reliable and well-loved that Honda kept making it well into 2020. That's 36 years of continuous production. Yeah, let that sink in. In terms of power, the VFR 750 packed around 100 horsepower, while the 800 pushed closer to 110. Some riders swear by the 750's carbureted setup, while others prefer the 800's fuel injection. Both came with bulletproof engines featuring gear-driven cams known for their durability. The later VTEC models also delivered extra mid-range torque, making them even more versatile. The VFR was designed to be a sport bike with real-world usability. It could handle luggage, a passenger, and long highway miles with ease. But when the road got twisty, it could still carve corners like a pro. Plenty of riders have taken these bikes to track days and held their own against much faster competition. If you're hunting for one of these classics, don't get too caught up on the mileage. Service history is way more important. These engines are known to run forever if properly maintained. Bikes that have had long-term owners tend to be the best bets. Build quality is top-notch too. Fun fact, the early VFR 750 was supposedly built as a loss leader to repair Honda's reputation after their early 80s camshaft debacle. Safe to say, it worked. Number 2, Harley Ultra Classic with Evolution engines. The Electric Glide Ultra Classic was powered by the 1340cc Evolution V-twin engine, a motor that saved Harley-Davidson from financial ruin in the 80s and kept their touring bikes rolling well into the 90s. It was air-cooled, push-rod operated, and had a bulletproof reputation. Sure, it only made about 67 horsepower and 80 pound-feet of torque, but it wasn't about speed. It was about the endless rumbling highway rides. With its low rev and power band, it delivered smooth acceleration without feeling stressed. Harley packed the Ultra Classic with features to keep riders comfortable on long-haul trips. It had full fairing, hard saddlebags, a top case, and a plush seat that felt like a lazy boy on wheels. Add in floorboards and an integrated sound system, and you had a touring machine built for days on the road. One of the quirks of the Ultra Classic was its 3-hole oil system, separate oil changes for the engine, transmission, and primary drive. It wasn't the simplest setup, but it kept the bike running smoothly for hundreds of thousands of miles. And let's not forget the legendary Harley Shake. At idle, this bike vibrated like an earthquake. But once you got moving, the rubber-mounted engine smoothed out, making for a surprisingly refined ride. At nearly 800 pounds, this was no lightweight, but its low center of gravity and well-balanced chassis made it manageable for even smaller riders. And while it didn't have the outright speed of some Japanese tourers, it had something they didn't: soul. The Evolution engine's distinct rumble, the chrome-laden styling, and the unmistakable presence made it a bike that turned heads everywhere. Number 3, Honda ST1100 Pan-European. At the heart of the ST1100 was a rock-solid 1085cc V4 engine, smooth, reliable, and capable of putting down effortless power over thousands of miles. And let's not forget the shaft drive, meaning way less maintenance compared to a chain-driven setup. This thing was made for riders who'd rather clock miles than tinker with a drivetrain. But what really set the ST1100 apart was its legendary durability. Riders routinely put 6-figure mileage on these bikes with nothing but routine maintenance. Add to that a well-designed fairing for wind protection, a 24-liter fuel tank, giving it serious range, and an optional ABS with traction control, and you had a bike that wasn't just about comfort, it was about confidence on the road. Number 4, Kawasaki ZG1000 Concours. The Kawasaki Concours ZG1000, or GTR 1000 outside the US, was a sport touring powerhouse of the 90s. Based on the Ninja 1000, this machine blended sports bike DNA with long-haul comfort. It packed a 997cc inline 4 engine, offering solid torque and a smooth ride, making it a favorite for riders looking for a balance of power and reliability. With a 6-speed transmission and shaft drive, the Concours eliminated the hassle of chain maintenance, a major plus for long-distance riders. Its wind protection and comfortable riding position made it ideal for covering serious miles, while its large fuel tank ensured fewer stops on the road. It got a significant update in 1994, featuring dual-piston front brake calipers, a refined instrument cluster, and improved suspension, enhancing both safety and comfort. Even today, well-maintained Concours models are still out there, proving their legendary durability. Got a favorite memory with one? Number 5. BMW R1100 GS. The R1100 GS came equipped with BMW's legendary 1085cc air and oil-cooled boxer engine, delivering 80 horsepower and 97 newton-meters of torque. It wasn't about raw speed, it was about unstoppable endurance. The telelever front suspension gave it unmatched stability, making long-distance rides smoother and reducing front-end dive under braking. Plus, its shaft drive meant low maintenance, making it perfect for riders who valued reliability over chain upkeep. At 243 kilograms, it wasn't light, but the balance and handling make it surprisingly easy to maneuver. Number 6. Honda GL1500 Goldwing. The Honda Goldwing GL1500 is a touring legend. With a 1520cc flat-six engine, it delivered smooth power and effortless acceleration. Designed for comfort, it featured plush seating, an adjustable windscreen, cruise control, and storage compartments big enough for long-haul travel. The GL1500's design was classic: bold fairings, chrome accents, and a silhouette that still turns heads today. Riders appreciated its refined ride, excellent wind protection, and unmatched durability. Unlike modern bikes with sharp, aggressive lines, the Goldwing embraced a classic touring aesthetic that still turns heads today. Honda engineered the Goldwing for reliability. These bikes have been known to rack up hundreds of thousands of miles with minimal issues thanks to solid construction and smart design. While modern touring motorcycles boast new tech, the GL1500 remains a timeless choice for those who value pure riding experience over digital distractions. Number 7. Yamaha GTS 1000. The Yamaha GTS 1000. If you know, you know. This was Yamaha's attempt at an alternative sport touring motorcycle. And by alternative, I mean something that looks straight out of a sci-fi movie. The bike hit the market in 1993 and came loaded with technology that was way ahead of its time. It had a single-sided swing arm, but not at the back, at the front. Yeah. Yamaha took what you'd expect on a rear wheel and threw it on the front, completely separating the steering and suspension functions. The goal? Less front-end dive under braking and smoother cornering. Did it work? Well, kinda. But it was also wildly expensive to produce, and the public just wasn't ready for it. The engine was a 1000cc inline 4 borrowed from the FCR 1000, but Yamaha decided to tone it down, dropping the horsepower to 100. Why? Emissions, fuel economy, and supposedly to make it more tour-friendly. They threw in fuel injection, which was rare in the early 90s, and a 3-way catalytic converter, another high-tech touch for the time. But that power drop? Yeah, buyers were not thrilled. And then there's the weight. Fully fueled, this thing tipped the scales at just over 270 kilos, which for a sport tour is a bit much. It wasn't unrideable, but let's just say low-speed maneuvering required a bit of muscle. And if you wanted comfort, well, Yamaha gave it an okay windscreen, but the handlebar positioning, it was weird. If they had just brought the bars an inch higher and 2 inches closer to the rider, it would have been much more comfortable. It wasn't a big seller, but today it's a cult classic. People who own them, they love them. It's a bike that was ahead of its time, packed with engineering that other manufacturers wouldn't even think about till decades later. Number 8. Suzuki GSX-R 1100. Originally launched in 1986 and running strong until 1998, the GSX-R 1100 was Suzuki's response to the growing demand for high-performance, 4-stroke motorcycles. Before this, Japanese sports bikes were mostly just tweaked versions of standard models. But Suzuki saw the gap in the market and went all in. What made the GSX-R 1100 special? Weight reduction. The engineers at Suzuki weren't just looking for more power. They wanted a chassis that could handle it. Drawing inspiration from endurance racing, they developed an aluminum frame, at the time a radical move. The GSX-R 400 in 1984 laid the groundwork, proving that an alloy frame could make the bike significantly lighter without compromising strength. Suzuki took that formula, scaled it up, and gave birth to the GSX-R 750, which would evolve into the GSX-R 1100. Power came from a 1052cc four-cylinder dual overhead cam DOHC engine that put out an impressive 137 horsepower in its early years. Unlike its air-cooled rivals, Suzuki introduced an advanced oil cooling system called SACS, Suzuki Advanced Cooling System, which allowed for aggressive tuning while keeping temperatures in check. It was a forward-thinking approach that set the bike apart from its competition. Handling, however, was a different story. While the GSX-R 1100 was praised for its straight-line speed, early models were notorious for instability when pushed hard. Suzuki spent the next few years tweaking the geometry, sometimes successfully, sometimes not so much. The 1989 K model had a stiffer frame, but came at the cost of handling issues that some riders found unpredictable. The 1990 L model corrected many of these problems with a longer wheelbase and improved suspension. By 1993, the GXR 1100 underwent a major transformation. Water cooling replaced oil cooling, bumping power up to 155 horsepower. The new frame, with a 5-sided pentagonal cross-section, added much-needed rigidity, and 6-piston Nissan calipers improved braking. Despite these upgrades, the bike was starting to show its age. By the time the last model rolled out the production line in 1998, the GXR 1100 had gained a cult following but was overshadowed by the next generation of sports bikes that prioritized lighter weight and sharper handling. Number 9. 1995 BMW K1100 RS. Some say it's because the engine looks like a literal brick, and they wouldn't be wrong. But let's get into the details because this bike is something special. The K1100 RS is powered by a 4-cylinder engine, basically a small car motor shoved into a motorcycle. It's got a smooth ride, and for a bike from 1995, it still holds its own. Heated grips, ABS, yeah, BMW was way ahead of the game. Back then, putting ABS on a bike was practically witchcraft, but BMW pulled it off. The bike is surprisingly planted, giving you that solid, confident ride without feeling sluggish. It's got that sport touring vibe before bikes really leaned into the touring side. Now, it's not perfect. Like any old BMW, it's got its quirks, leaving it sitting too long, and the engine loses compression because the oil drains out. You'll need to shoot a little oil into the cylinders to get it to fire up again. And when it does, it'll smoke for a good 20 minutes burning that oil off. But once it's running, it's bulletproof. The K1100 RS isn't the fastest bike out there, but it's got enough power to keep things interesting. It's got a comfortable seat with a solid lower back support, making long rides easy. The wind protection is decent, not too much, not too little, and let's talk about that horn. It's not just loud, it's a full-on train horn. You'll be scaring pedestrians for fun. So who's buying this bike? Probably the BMW guy who already has a garage full of them. This isn't your first bike, it's the one you buy when you know exactly what you want. And if you are that guy, you already know this bike just works. Number 10. Honda CBR 1100 XX Super Blackbird. Honda designed this machine to take down the Kawasaki Ninja ZX-11, and for a while it held the title of the fastest production motorcycle in the world. An 1137 inline-4 engine pushing out 164 horsepower meant it wasn't just fast, it was devastatingly smooth, with power delivery that felt effortless even at high speeds. What made the Blackbird truly special was its balance. It wasn't just a straight-line rocket, it handled exceptionally well for its size. The aerodynamics with that signature front fairing made it stable even at triple-digit speeds. It also featured an incredibly refined build. Honda's attention to detail was evident in everything from the analog gauges to the flawless fit and finish. This specific model, it's a 1999 version, meaning it benefited from Honda's updates including fuel injection for better throttle response. The carbon fiber wheels on this one, a serious upgrade, reducing unsprung weight and making handling even sharper. Combine that with a Nitron rear shock, and you got a touring bike that feels more agile than it should. For those long rides, the Blackbird was built to eat up the miles with ease. The ergonomics struck a great balance, sporty but comfortable enough for extended trips. The exhaust, stock and unmarked, which is becoming a rarity on these bikes. Every part of this machine screams quality, and with only 7,600 miles on the clock, it's practically a time capsule. So, where does the Blackbird stand today? It's a collector's piece, a true modern classic. Some might argue that the Hayabusa stole its crown, but the Blackbird was the bike that set the standard. If you're after a sport tourer with legendary status, this is the one. But what do you think? If you had a chance to own one of these, would you? Or do you have another 90s legend in mind that deserves more recognition? Drop it in the comments. Now, over to you. Do you think that we missed any legendary touring motorcycles from the 90s? Let us know your favorite in the comments.